you're very welcome to Mind Blowing 8. I'm Paul Gill.
And I'm Siobhan Lyon.
And on this Mind Blowing, we're going to have a discussion. I sent Siobhan a video just last night. It was a video I heard somebody else on on a talk show talking about it, but it was done by two psychologists, as far as I know. It was Haider and Simmel. It was 1944. We'll leave the link for it in underneath the video, or with the podcast, wherever you're listening, because we're doing a video version and an auditory version of this podcast. But the video, Siobhan, I asked you to have a look at the video and tell me what was going on in the video. What did you conclude? Describe the video, I suppose, first.
First of all, it's this box, or like a rectangle or something, and a little piece of it opens, like to the left, and there's two triangles and a little small circle. And the big triangle, in my opinion, is a feckin' bully, right? And the little triangle tries to attack him and get him back into the box, first of all, but he comes out and he just attacks him and he jams him up against the thing and he jabs him a few times. And then, but the poor little circle is hiding inside of the box, and then it eventually kind of comes out a little bit, but then the big triangle goes in and starts attacking it. But then the other little triangle comes and kind of rescues it and gets it out, and they lock the big one into the box, but then it gets back out again and the other two run off. And eventually the angry big triangle breaks the box apart. It's a horrible thing. I didn't like it at all.
And it's only about a minute and I think it's a minute and 44 seconds.
Yeah.
It's very small and it's very basic animation. It's just lines, it's just triangles, a circle. But the interesting thing is it is used to illustrate how we imbue that with meaning. We create a story. You referred to the triangles as him, and he was a bully and he did that and locked in. The thing basically it's just lines on a screen moving around, but we as human beings we tend to put meaning into it. Some people say it's a love story, and similar to what you described as the big triangle is the bully and he's trying to get the girl who's the circle, and the little triangle is trying to protect her and tricks the big triangle into being locked into this room in the end. But all of that is conjecture. All of that is we make it up. And it was used to illustrate how we imbue everything with meaning. And we as human beings, we do this all the time. And where this is relevant is I suppose in our whole attitude to life, and even language. There's a big trend at the moment towards political correctness. I absolutely hate it. And I was talking to a friend of mine one time, and she's well versed in mental health and she said, "You do know that all language is neutral. It's the meaning that we put with it."
Well, that's interesting, because my little triangle and my circle were non-binary. I didn't have a gender on them.
But the big one,
big one was a he. That was like my pronoun for the big triangle for some reason.
Even there's nothing to indicate that the big triangle is a male.
No. Not a bloody thing. So I don't know why that came in. Well, I probably do. Like, if I think about my own past experiences, when I was younger, I had a lot of problems really with the male gender.
Bully males, bully males.
Taking advantage of me when I was very young, being abused as a kid, and that kind of stuff would have been rough. I was always a man, in fairness.
Even though it could be a woman.
And it could be a woman.
Somebody else might look at that same video and conclude that that's my mother that's pushing us around to shoot kids, or that's a cat and a dog and there's a bigger dog, or it's a lion.
Could have just as easily been the teacher I had in school. She was a horrendous bully. She was the worst one I'd say I had, really. So it's weird. It's interesting, you guys. You definitely have to take a look at that video, because the way I interpret that is so weird. Although after listening to the podcast now, you kind of know what we're going with. So it might be kind of spoiler alert.
But you know the way psychiatrists will get people to look at lots of ink. On papers. What does that remind you of?
Did you ever try that? Let us know in the comments down below.
I think you can do it. There's certain sites online where you can do it.
You can, yeah. You can look it up.
But you describe everything, like you're just looking at blots, basically look a bit like butterflies that have been flattened. But some people say that's my mother, that's my childhood home.
It's a butterfly.
That's my lake where I fell in, and that's whatever.
They make different things out of it.
So the blots are just blots. They are, and the animation was just that animation. It's the meaning that you put into it. And it's the meaning that you put into every situation in life. Like, glass half full, glass half empty. It's a glass with liquid in it. And it's the association that we put on that. And this illustrates why, we all live in the same world, but we don't all see it the same way.
Oh yeah, we've got completely different views. completely different.
And that's why some people can be very positive in a negative situation, and other people are just negative.
Yeah.
And then when you think of it, if you're negative, and negativity has its place, as I think I may have said in a previous podcast, negativity keeps you safe. Says don't cross that road with a blindfold on, don't put your hand into that kettle of boiling water, don't don't. And it's trying to keep you safe, but sometimes it's overreacting to situations. So we all live in the same world, but we don't see it the same way. So people who are negative, or people who maybe worry a lot, they're seeing the world through a particular lens that isn't necessarily true. It's not necessarily factual, but it is true for them.
Well, that's a lot of the work that we do when we're using CBT. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. You're kind of getting a person to think about the way they think and why they think that way and how it makes them feel when they think that way. You know, so you're really opening up. Like, do they catastrophize different situations? Do they overthink it? Are you constantly searching out the danger in things? You know, and that whole piece in around the amygdala as well, and what the fight, fright, and freeze. No,
flight
or
flight.
I always get really tongue twisted, even when I'm in sessions with people. I get really fucking tongue twisted around it.
You know that, yeah.
Do you know that thing I'm talking about? Actually, my hand looks really weird when it goes up to the camera.
You've got big hands when you're at the camera. That's why I keep my hands down here, because I tend to talk with my hands and they'll fill the whole screen. But I had somebody in my clinic recently, and she illustrated wonderfully how we take for granted the way that we think.
Yeah.
And sometimes we not necessarily think that the whole world should think as we think, but we tend to align ourselves with like-minded people who do think, and people who do see the world through the lens that we do. And this lady had a bit of self-sabotage going on.
Oh.
And there's always a reason for that. And she was holding herself back in her career. And she was kind of saying, and she set it up beautifully herself. She said, like, there's a voice in my head kind of going, you're not good enough. You're going to be found out. Imposter syndrome. They're going to know. And she would sabotage interviews, even though she would profess that she knew what it was she was being asked and she could give an answer. But her voice said, no, you don't want to answer that. So there was another voice in her head that was like the mother figure, like, you should be spending more time raising your kids and whatever. And there's another part wanted to be liked. There were several different parts, and I explained to her this approach that I use called parts therapy. You give all of these parts identities, and you bring them out, and you create a forum for them to talk about stuff. And she did really, really good work on that. And then she said, I never thought of the voices in my head as being actually like people.
Yeah.
Give them a persona and ask them, what are you doing? When did you come about? Why were you created in my psyche? What's your job?
Afraid of it, aren't they? Like, I mean, think it's just my schizophrenic, like,
or multiple personalities. We all talk to ourselves anyways.
We all do. Yeah, we definitely.
I mean, you hear people on the street talking to themselves. Sometimes that's their internal dialogue just has come out.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Eckhart Tolle wrote a book, and in his book he talks about that very thing.
Right.
It's a woman on the bus, and she's on this bus, right? And she's giving out shit. She's giving away to herself and others. Sorry, you're cursed again. But anyway, she's giving out, and then everyone's looking at her and going, judging her, because everybody's avoiding her and keeping away from her and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He gets off the bus and he realizes he's doing the exact same dialogue in his head, but he's just not saying it out loud. No. He goes, oh my God, and the exact same thing that lady is doing, but no one can just hear me.
Yeah. And you see, there's no political correctness in our internal dialogue.
No.
So sometimes if you're struggling to be politically correct on the outside, you're a hypocrite. It's not your default setting. No, I'm not saying you go out and you verbally abuse and you criticize other people. There's all of that. But I suppose I grew up in an environment, with males. There was like, 8 kids in our family, one girl. And there was a lot of slagging, whatever,
Yeah.
Like, I remember somebody else that was visiting, somebody from outside of the area, will put it. And a friend of mine walked into the pub, and he just comes up and he just smacks me in the back of the head. Says, how's it going, horse? I heard it was kind of horrific. He's like, believe you. And I go, that's a term of endearment. That's showing affection to me by slapping me across the back of the head.
It's a really country thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But political correctness would say, no, that's assault. You shouldn't touch that person. How dare you call that person a horse?
We're bang up against.
Or not that I identify as a horse.
How's it going, horse?
Yeah. So yeah, we have this internal dialogue going on, and this internal dialogue tells us how we see the world.
Yeah.
And the world is not a reflection of itself; it's a reflection of you.
Yeah.
you kind of project it all out there on the outside. And the wonderful thing about that is that when you realize that and when you accept that, if your world isn't everything that you want it to be, it means I can change it.
Yeah.
I need to change my perspective.
Yes.
You know, there's an interesting, I think it was Stephen Covey in a book, stand corrected, because sometimes I just remember, the lesson that I learned from reading something. Rather than where exactly I got it from or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was Stephen Covey. It was a book where he was talking about how our perspectives, and he was talking about, he was on an underground, I think, in New York, and people were just sitting down. I think it was like pre-internet, so people were reading newspapers and ignoring each other and staring out windows. And the train stopped, and a guy got on with 3 or 4 kids, young boys, whatever. And they went rampant up and down the carriage, and they were running around, banging into people, chasing each other, shouting and whatever. And he was looking at this, and in his head, he wasn't there. So, why isn't that father telling him to stop doing that? Yes, sit down and have manners and whatever. And then in the end, he did approach him. And he said to him, look, your kids are a bloody disgrace. Like they're causing havoc up and down the carriage and all the rest. And the father just looked at him and he said, I don't know how to tell them that their mother's just died of cancer in hospital. And he said, when I tell them, they'll never be the same again. And I just want them to have their joy and their happiness and their freedom. And suddenly he saw it from a different perspective. He said, no, it's okay, it's fine. Let them run up.
Leave them go. Yeah.
Now the behavior was still the same behavior, but now he had no objection to it because he changed his perspective.
Yeah. He had empathy now.
Yeah.
He had compassion. So a different emotion came into it instead of anger and annoyance and disgust.
Yeah.
He had then had compassion and empathy then instead.
Yeah. And we do see the world through our own bias.
I think that's a lot of what we do as therapists. Like people come into us with horrific stories sometimes. And sometimes the story is not always about what somebody done to them. It can often be about what they done to others, especially around trauma and stuff like that. They feel so ashamed and so embarrassed of something that they done. And it's about our perspective. Like we really have to be so open, I think, as therapists, to see it from someone else's perspective and to see it in a compassionate way.
Yeah.
I think for me anyway, that's always something that has come really naturally. I've always been able to see somebody else's point of view. I've never, I'll have my own opinions about things, but I've never been a forceful person around those opinions. I'm always able to leave them aside and really concentrate on what somebody's saying to me.
Yeah, because that's what just popped into my head when you said that sometimes if you are too empathetic, I was going to say empathetic, if you do see somebody else's point of view too much, your own kind of never gets center stage, then you kind of defer to other people's point of view.
Except when I'm with my husband. He gets it in the neck regularly. He knows all about my opinions.
So you're different in your home environment than you are with your clients.
Yeah. It's funny, I'm similar with the kids if they have a problem, or if my husband has a problem, or if anyone in my family comes with a problem. I really do listen and I try to help. I think with the children, it's important to kind of mention that, with their thinking, you're as a parent, you're trying to help them form good opinions all the time, aren't you? And grow and learn from that. So I suppose what I try to do is get them to make their own decisions. I try not to get too parenty. Some parents get very you shouldn't do this and you have to do that now. I try not to get involved, and when they come with a problem, I listen and I reflect back what they're saying to me. Just nice, gentle reflection. God, I'm hearing that was really hard for you, to cope with that person's behavior today. And then they're like, yeah, but they don't want you to tell them what to do.
This is my point.
To figure it out.
Sometimes with a client, they'll voice an opinion, and I will deliberately do the opposite opinion, just to not so much to provoke a reaction, but to shift them. To kind of go, well, how is it that where did you begin to believe that opinion? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And you kind of go, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But I did hear somebody talking one time about, sometimes if you're best friends with your kids, you're not being a parent. Your parents, your kids expect you to be a parent.
Oh yeah, you have to have rules.
So isn't there
limits and
things, so isn't there a kind of a boundary or limitation where you do have to step in and say, no, you're not doing that. I don't care what your opinion is. You're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I agree. You can't let them do everything that they want to do or have everything they want to do. But I suppose in terms of issues or problems that would come up for
Yeah,
them or different thinking styles, it's important to let them figure some stuff out.
it is. But you see, I again, like the example I gave a few moments ago, I was on a beach somewhere, and it was nice. I sit beside people who don't speak English because I just kind of want peace. So while I've some understanding of foreign languages, a little bit of French, a little bit of German or whatever. By and large, if somebody's talking beside me and they're speaking a different language, it doesn't affect me. I'm just relaxed. But I was on this particular beach, and there was this young family, and they were British. Oh God. They had two boys around 7 or 8, and they did literally run rampant. I'm not sure, was getting sand into people's faces. They were running now, and the mother was lying there, and she's going, "Oh, please stop doing that! Stop, no, stop it! Don't be careful going near the water and whatever." I go, "You brought them to a beach. There's lots of water. Will you get up off your and just tell them you can't be whatever about having fun around. You shouldn't be annoying other people." And this it was annoying. It wasn't a kind of that they just did it once or twice, but they were continually at it.
Oh God!
And I was just so relieved when they left that beach that day. And I thought, like, that's a lack of parenting.
But to me, it's a lack of time spent with the kids. I always think, like, if a child if a child has behavior like that, that's destructive behavior.
Yeah.
And it's not acceptable for other people. Like if they're getting sand kicked in their eyes every 5 minutes, like what they're saying basically, in my opinion, is, "Mom, come and play with me,"
Yeah.
So they're doing everything they can in their power to get her attention.
Well, I don't know. The mother is definitely not being a parent in that moment. She's just letting them do stuff. And if they do stuff that's harmful.
Yeah.
Again, another example where I was sometime.
Just before we go away from that, I would say distract them then with something positive.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, "I'm going to cut the arse off you." Sit down and behave yourself. You don't have to get aggressive or violent or angry. You just have to say, "Come on, let's build a sandcastle. Wait now, can anybody find seashells? Or let's go and look for, starfish or whatever." You need to get them active and into a thing, because I'm guessing they were kind of young enough, maybe 5, 6, 7.
But another example that once where I lived, it was summer. I was painting the outside of the house.
Yeah.
And you paint the wall of the house a certain color, and then the plinth a different color. And I'd taken a break, and I'd left the paint cans there and the paintbrush. And this family called. I sat down, have a cup of coffee with them outside, and then I turned around, and the little girl, she's about 4, she's picked up the paintbrush and she's brushing the wrong color on the wall, whatever. And I'm goes, "Please stop doing that." And the child ignores her, continues, and I said, I'm going, "Stop." And then she looks at me for like she was ruining my and the parent was just content to say, "Stop doing that." And the same family then, on a different occasion, I was watching something on telly in the sitting room, and the father was sitting beside me, and the kid got up, and he literally went and he grabbed both sides of the television and thought, "No, stop doing that, stop doing it." And he's going to pull the bloody telly down on top of me. And I had to get up.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
And I thought, that's not parenting.
Yeah, that's copping out.
Yeah.
You're copping out at that stage.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly that's a dangerous thing. The wall thing, I would tend to think, okay, well, sure, you can paint back over it, but the mother should paint back over it, not you. It's like, if you're going to let your kid do destructive things, well, then you've got to be accountable. You're accountable, not the child. So I do believe that when our children do things wrong, come to me. Don't give out to my kid. Tell me, and I'll discipline my own child.
Yeah, but you should be the first person to notice.
Yeah. And I should be the person to discipline my own child in whatever way.
I suppose with me, I've come from a generation, like when we used to be brought out somewhere, whatever, you were there, you stayed quiet, and you didn't run off, and you didn't do anything, until you got permission to do it.
You weren't bold.
You never, you never get back chat to adults, and you never, whatever. So I'm coming from the other extreme, and maybe that's why it irks me. Maybe that's my stuff.
Yeah.
That I need to work on.
You were brought up in a different way.
Yeah.
I was brought up in a home where you got slapped and actually got bet if you were bold, so, or if you did something wrong. I was brought up in a school where you got bet if you didn't do your homework, so my views and opinions and what I'd learned was very different to the way I parent today. you know,
Yeah.
like, but I've read loads of books about this stuff. I've educated myself. I went to all the Triple P parenting classes that I could get my hands on as well, to help me change that narrative or that style of parenting, because I didn't want to be a slapper.
There's a different meaning to that. It's okay, Siobhan, I can edit that out later.
You better. But I didn't want to be one of those parents that hits their kids. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't want to be that kind of parent. Because it's wrong. A parent should never hit a child. You know, they're an adult, they're a grown person.
Yeah.
So,
but you need to restrain them if they're doing something that could harm themselves or harm others. The parent does actually need to get up and kind of.
I've had to pull my kids away from each other, literally. Like, you know, you have to put your hands on your child sometimes to get them, to keep them safe, you know, and all that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
So any like final tips for people around managing their own mindset and their views? Well, this is the big thing in the podcast, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose that the biggest thing is take responsibility for your opinion of the world, how you see the world. It's based on your life events and how you've interpreted those life events, how you've processed it or sometimes not processed it. So if the world isn't as you want it to be, you don't have to go out there and change the world. You go in here and you change your response to it.
Yeah, Anthony de Mello, a lovely quote on that, actually. Instead of trying to carpet the world, put on a pair of slippers. And I just fucking love that. You know, because we do go out there and we try and change everybody else's views and opinions. Try to see things from somebody else's perspective. And that's what I always do. You often see these things up on Facebook where there's a really, you know, sad person sitting on a bench, you know, and the rain is coming down on top of them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a happy day for everybody, you know. So if somebody's a bit angry or aggressive in the car, try and see, well, you know, maybe they just lost somebody and they're dealing with bereavement, or, you know, there could be anything going on.
You don't know what's going on in other people's heads.
Yeah.
Okay. Like us, subscribe to us,
comment down below. Yeah. Any questions, we'll be delighted to answer them, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.